So hello and welcome back to Go Again Gaming. My name is Az and today I am not wearing my hat. But today we're going to talk about the classes and archetypes that I would love to see in Flesh and Blood. So Flesh and Blood obviously is a game where you choose a hero and you pit that hero against another hero that your opponent's chosen, and you are a fantasy character and you have a class, and that class represents what your game style is, what weapons you can use, what armor you can wear, and what abilities and actions you have. So it is very much a fundamental part of the game, and a part of the game that I think can be expanded on exponentially with the amount of fantasy tropes and archetypes there are out there. So these are 5 classes that I would love to see in the game. Some of them have a sort of dual sort of class or idea as such, but these are the 5 that I would like to see in the game, or mechanically what I would like to see in the game. Whether that relates to the class, I don't know, but yeah, you'll get the idea. So the first one is some form of sort of barbarian class that cares about having low life or gets buffed from the amount of damage that they've taken on the previous turn, or something that cares about pinging yourself for damage but then bringing your attack up as a result, sort of thing. So it cares about low life, dealing yourself damage, and then potentially taking damage from the opponent to fuel an extra turn. So it's quite risky, but it could sort of rely on sort of using your life as a resource, but not so much like the rune blade, the shadow rune blades, like banishing and losing life gradually. You want to be taking big hits and dealing yourself big damage to then get huge upside. So I think that this could be a way of putting in stuff like you deal X more damage with your next barbarian attack, where X is double the amount of life you lost last turn. Or on the previous turn. So yeah, it cares about maybe the life that you've lost, and then giving you double damage for the amount of life that you've lost potentially. But I think, yeah, barbarian or some sort of class that cares about dealing yourself damage or just getting enraged by taking damage and then having massive upside as a result. So I think that could be quite a cool little game style, is deliberately taking damage or deliberately hurting yourself, because then it gives the opponent the dilemma of, do I want to damage them massively because it's just going to buff their next turn up a huge amount. So that could be quite good. It could be quite swingy as well, and it does sort of dictate how much damage your opponent wants to do on a barbarian or some sort of character that's in that archetype, because they're going to receive double that damage back next turn. So yeah, I think something like that would be really, really cool. The next one, the next class, I think, or the sort of archetype as such, would be like an assassin sort of rogue style character. And I've touched on something in the previous video with regards to cards and abilities that care about just discarding cards from the deck into the graveyard. And in Magic the Gathering, it's called milling. So milling is when you put the top card of your deck into your graveyard. I think the assassins and rogues and those sort of characters and archetypes would be the ones to do this. And I think also rogues, assassins, thieves guild sort of style characters could also steal cards from your opponent's hand, or use cards that your opponents they've got in their graveyard potentially. And stealing or copying your opponent's things that they play, and also nicking equipments and items from stuff in play as well, like equipment that they've got, helmets and armor and greaves and stuff that they've got on, potentially nicking those for you to use, or swapping equipment or disabling equipment, nicking equipment and stuff. So I think assassin rogues should be the ones that do that sort of stuff, like copying and stealing and disabling, all that sort of thing, as well as the mill as well, because I think that could be quite a powerful mechanic in this sort of game, because your deck is basically a resource. So yeah, assassins, rogues, thieves, that sort of stuff I think would interact in that way. Stealing your opponent's things, copying your opponent's things, and putting cards from your opponent's deck straight into the graveyard for then you to use instead. So the next sort of class I'd like to see in Flesh and Blood, and I think one that would be fairly easy to do, is like a paladin character. So similar to the Guardian, where you care about sort of massive attacks with like maces and smiting your opponents, but also stuff and cards that cares about healing yourself, or life gain or life matters style decks. So the more life you have, the better, or how much life you've gained this turn, or something like that. I know life gain isn't really a strategy, because you're not really, this game's all about dealing damage to your opponent rather than sort of outlasting them. But I think if you're a paladin, it would be about the long game. It would be about wearing your opponents down, using loads of defensive attacks to sort of outlast your opponent and then smashing them at the end. So it's more of a sort of long game strategy with the paladin, a defensive character that cares about massive defensive abilities, also healing yourself, of course, and just outlasting your opponent could be a good class to be if you're more about a defensive player. And then again, it gives your opponent the feel like, oh, am I going to be able to get through his defenses? Is it worth me using all of these cards if he's going to be able to soak up loads of damage? So how am I going to outlast this paladin? How am I going to get through? So yeah, definitely begs those questions of your opponents if you're a paladin, and you care about long, drawn-out battles, because you're the one that has the sort of constitution to get through a long, drawn-out battle, because you have massive defensives and healing abilities. So yeah, paladin I think could be an easy one to do as well, all about sort of outlasting your opponents. The next sort of class I'd love to see is like a conjurer or like a summoner character. So someone that cares about sort of summoning creatures to fight instead of you, basically, or soak up the damage instead of you. So this could, I alluded to it in a previous video, but I think permanent cards and other permanent style cards are going to come into effect quite a lot in the future. Just because it makes sort of chase rares and all that sort of thing. But yeah, go and look at the previous video with regards to my predictions as to what could come in the game later on. But yeah, summoner or a conjurer that summons up little tokens to fight in your stead and take damage for you and have little actions on the cards and stuff, I think would be a good little space to explore. And I think it's thematic as well, because you know there's loads of characters over there, loads of fantasy characters and archetypes that care about summoning creatures to fight for them. So I think that could be a good little class, like a summoner conjurer type class. So yeah, I think that could be quite cool. And finally, I think some sort of devilish sort of warlock, tiefling sort of style character that cares about chaosy, like pure chaos, random magic. So messing with your opponent's hand and sort of warping cards that are in play. So if they've played like a defense card, you can then play a attack response or defense response or whatever it is. Or no, maybe instant, isn't it? Instant can be played at any time. So lots of instants that then warp cards into other things. So if they've played like a defense reaction, you can then play an instant which says replace that card with the top card of the deck, sort of thing, and then play those effects and that sort of stuff. And replacing cards in hand with cards from the graveyard or the deck, or stuff in their arsenal, swapping that around. So just pure chaos magic or chaos style play. I think would be a funny one, because if you're against like a devil or a warlock style character, you're just gonna know that this game is just not gonna go your way with regards to what strategy you have in mind, because it's just gonna be pure absolute chaos. And the devils and the tieflings and the warlocks are just sort of laughing at you because they're just having a fun sort of comedic game, and you're trying to sort of battle through the chaos. And they would have sort of ways to navigate their deck with regards to how chaotic it's going to be, but at the end of the day, it's just going to be pure dumb luck chaos game magic with no strategy in mind, apart from rinsing and ruining your strategy as an opponent. So I think that could be quite a funny one to do as well. Yeah, that would be quite hard to design in this sort of game because everything is done on the combat chain pretty much. So trying to manipulate that and play cards then replace other cards and stuff would be quite difficult to achieve. So yeah, those are the five classes. Was it five? Yeah, 5 classes that I'd love to see come into this game. I'm sure there's going to be loads more as time goes on, loads of more ideas and discussions and speculations as to what I think could be quality in this game. But what are your thoughts? What sort of classes, what sort of D&D style tropes, what sort of characters and abilities and classes and job titles do you want in this game? What do you want to see from this game? Because there's loads of stuff out there, loads of stuff you can take inspiration from, and it's just going to be interesting to see where this can go. And obviously I mentioned it in a previous video, but dual classes I think is another thing that could come up in the future. But yeah, loving where this game is going, and I can't wait to see what else this game has in store for us with regards to the classes that we get in the future. So yeah, so thank you very much for tuning in. I have been Az, and please make sure you like and subscribe on the channel and hit the little bell notification if you do want to be notified of any future videos, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. See ya.